to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for Stage 7 of La Vuelta. And without pulling any punches, I think this is perhaps the worst Grand Tour stage we've ever watched or covered, to be honest, in terms of peloton appetite, quality of the eventual sprint field, and also some bad events happening during the stage. Nonetheless, these stages fill up the Grand Tours and, you know, things happen. So we're here. It's from UTL to Olivia. And they actually, this is what's curious to me, right? There's been 3 pure bunch sprints in this Vuelta, and even the punchy stage 2 wasn't that hard. This is another one where the last 90K is a pancake flat. Listen, if there was cross tailwind, could have been carnage, could have been very exciting. There wasn't. It was mostly headwind. But they go through Cullera here where there was the punchy finish. You know the one that did Cort win or Roglic won?
Cort won.
Okay. They go through that town and you could see the hill on the right. And I was thinking, we haven't had one of them. We haven't had a 2K 10% finish in this first week. I guess we had an uphill finish yesterday. It's
a consequence also of what happened to stage 2, you know, because stage 2 was kind of that punch finish and that took that out. But I do agree that there's been a lot of flat sprint stages without that necessarily spicy hill in the last 50 kilometers, spicing up a flat sprint stage. But when it comes to these flat sprint stage, would it even change too much about the riders fighting for it if you do have a hill in the last 25, 30 kilometers? Because I'd expect Groves to be there anyway.
I think it makes it even more likely that Groves wins.
Yeah.
Probably. I wouldn't mind. Yeah, maybe it'd be a breakaway stage. Have we had a stage for a... Normally in the first week of the Vuelta, there's also a stage with 5K, 6%, about 10, 12Ks from the finish, like the stage Soler one from the breakaway. We haven't had one of them either. I'm not complaining. I think overall there's actually been quite a lot of GC action. It's a different route composition this year. It actually feels quite Tour de France-like to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, today was another sprint. And as I already said, the wind did not come into play to help us. And they averaged like under 40 Ks an hour for, I think, they averaged just over 40 for the whole stage, but the first 2/3 of it was under 40 Ks. And our boy Okamika, he don't miss, gets in the break again.
Exactly, with Jose Herrera. So 2 riders in the breakaway.
Yeah.
And you said it, there's this wind, 40K max speed and so forth, so a bit of headwind in that sense. And the reasoning is also for the breakaway riders who wants to ride an entire day up front, knowing that there were limited riders, Okamika and Herrera, Jose. So that's the breakaway for the day. That's what we'll see all day in the breakaway. But stuff did happen. In the peloton, we had a crash. Geraint Thomas was on the side of the road at some point. I don't think his crash was too serious, but I guess we'll see in the coming days if there's some kind of consequence to that, because sometimes the next day it doesn't hurt as much, but the second day afterwards it might be even more painful. When it comes to the actual action, there was an intermediate sprint planned, like you said, in Cullera. And the thing with Cullera was that when I saw the roadmap, the road book, the intermediate sprint was supposed to be after, in the last 300 meters before the intermediate sprint, there was a 180-degree turn.
Yeah.
And then about a 150-degree turn in the span of 200 meters just before the intermediate sprint. Then that last turn was about 30, 40 meters before the actual intermediate sprint. And
also in the middle of fucking nowhere. It was in front of like a random yellow house. You can see on the like it wasn't in the town.
Exactly. But fortunately in the stage itself, they have adapted that. It was on the bridge before those dangerous sections. So they looked after the safety. Not sure who to credit for that, whether the organization saw it or the UCI safety manager noticed it or someone else stepped in and noted it. But they did the right thing and made it safer. But when it comes to that sprint, Groves was there with Alpecin. I feel like there was some kind of quick step, 2 riders at the front before the intermediate sprint started, but eventually Remco was not actually competing there. Roglic was not competing either. Ayuso was trying to compete in the wheel of Finn Fisher-Black. Jonas Vingegaard was competing. Groves basically beat all of them. But when it comes to the second position, also Marijn van den Berg, sprinter. But then the third position was between Vingegaard and not Ayuso. He lost the wheel of Finn Fisher-Black. Finn Fisher-Black fighting it out. And Finn Fisher-Black has been really good this week. As in, he's been top 40, top 30 on the climbing stages when it comes to being in Domestique and so forth, and been really strong in the Ordino stage and also on yesterday's stage. And he just came short on beating Vingegaard at this intermediate sprint. Just came short. I would like to see the actual photo finish, but
doesn't exist.
Probably doesn't exist. Like
fan footage.
There was at some point, was it Raul Bankeri that mentioned it at the KOM?
Well, his friends were filming on Montjuic because they changed first at the bonus sprint gate on top, which always I think was there, so that wasn't changed.
Yeah.
I don't think it was with 9Ks to go on Montjuic, which was in the original parkour. They didn't know what the order was, so they asked the guys, his friends that were filming, who I met actually, very nice guys, and yeah, to figure out the order, which was kind of crazy. But yeah, this was a nothing stage. Were you surprised by Vingegaard sprinting?
Kind of. I would always see
too,
at Jumbo that Roglic would be the sprinty type, but maybe they see a different order in mind. Maybe they see yesterday and they think, oh, Roglic looks a bit stronger right now, so we want to try it with Vingegaard instead. So it was kind of surprising to me that Jonas was the one doing it, but he succeeded in some shape or form. 2 seconds might have been worth the effort. He beats Fisher Black, and we'll see if this Vuelta will be decided by 2 seconds with Vingegaard or not. But hey, it happened. But after the intermediate sprint, it's kind of like relaxed moment again. Break had been caught before this intermediate sprint, and there was this moment, you noted it, that Castroviejo was getting bottles for Ineos, and he's trying to move up on the left side of the road, and he does that by going into like a little bit of a gravel section by the side of the road.
Oh, he goes off the road.
Yeah. So he goes off the road to pass riders, to pass the peloton basically, and pop up in front of the peloton.
Yep.
Is that a good thing to do or not?
Well, I mean, again, he does exactly what Massiuk did in Tour of Flanders. Yes, it looks like he does it skillfully. Yes, when he re-enters, he's well clear of anybody else. He doesn't cause any danger in this instance. But when he pops out, there's no way he can't know when exactly that gravel ends.
Yeah.
And it does end shortly after, and then the foliage and whatever they're farming comes back in, and he would have had to have just jumped in like Massiuk. So it's the same move, right? Just remember that Massiuk, yeah, it was bad what he did. He crashed guys into a Flanders. He got DSQ'd and he should have been fined. But remember, he got a 3-month suspension for that given to him 3 months later. And people do exactly the same thing probably every single race.
Yeah.
And also, this wasn't like Castro did it in the same mentality of Massiuk. It wasn't that he got bumped to get clear. And so he's like, I either crash or I go into this ditch. He's trying to procure an advantage in moving up positions by using not the road. So, I mean, it's just, he's not going to get fined for it. But just note it so that when someone else does it again, like with sprint deviations, that the inconsistent application is probably why riders will keep doing this.
Exactly. It incentivizes people to keep trying it because the failure rate is limited compared to the success rate of riders doing it. And the fact that only one person has been properly fined for it, even though multiple riders have even crashed riders doing it, like Wiebes, for example, in, was it Brugge de Panne and Wevelgem, one of the two, that same exact scenario, crashed a rider, crashed a group actually, no consequences. Maciejuk does it, and the media rises up against it, as in it's loud on the media, social media against it. Oh, he crashed everybody. Then they react. Then that's a bit of a shame in my head that it has to go through the popularity takes it first before the UCI steps in to do anything about it. But anyway, we'll step forward from that. We had a crash not that long later. It's a crash involving GC Kuss. And
I know.
When I saw GC Kuss on the floor, I was panicking, but the man had the softest landing I've ever seen in human history.
He rolled. It was a crash. They were on the left side. They were kind of spaced out. They weren't in the tight bunch on the right-hand side. And yeah, he just lands and rolls onto Pierre de Latour's head and shoulder and takes a nice soft landing on him. So I doubt he'll be banged up unless a chain ring went into his leg or something, which it didn't look like. He got up pretty quickly. And he got on the Arkea train. No Jumbos waited for him. I don't think they needed to because the Arkea train with Hofstede was involved, just drilled it for him. So
was Uiterbrooks also involved?
I think so. I don't know if he actually went down or maybe had to stop in the middle of the melee, but he certainly was waiting. But that was far enough from the finish. They got up quick enough. The peloton was still chilling.
Yeah.
They were on this, they're not in town yet, and it's a headwind. It's just all blocked up at the front, and, Kuss had kind of been chilling at the back. We see Vingegaard with Van Baal and Walter on the right, Ineos are in the middle. Remco's moved up with his domestiques. Dainese with DSM were on the right-hand side as well. But, man, Dainese just can't... I don't know if he was involved in a crash, but he's wait, he lost 8 minutes today. He must be involved in the crash.
Probably was involved in
yeah.
some shape or
But that's
form.
the thing, yeah. It's a lot of work to keep guys safe, and then in the end, a crash can take you out. So yeah, it was a nervous run in. There was also just, I don't know, they just go through these towns. There's so many roundabouts. Every single, and then there was Alpecin as well. Into the last 6 kilometers, Intermarché driving it for Hugo Page, Groupama for Watson, and
Lenny
no, for
Martinez.
Askey and Martinez, keep Martinez safe. Alpecin for the stage favorite Groves. And Alpecin, there's this big roundabout coming up, and they decide at the last minute to swing from left to right as they look at it. And the left side was quicker, and it was crazy. It was just, everyone's so fresh that, and luckily it wasn't the first stage. People maybe are a little bit calmer, but yeah, just after that roundabout, I think they're going to another town area, and there's another huge pileup.
And like, it probably is a catalyst to more stress that these crashes end up happening. For example, the crash with Cousins involved maybe make it a bit more stressful for the next 10 kilometers. And then another crash happens, so more stressful for the next 10 kilometers. And that crash that you mentioned, the one with, it was above 3 kilometers to go. So the time losses, the gaps that are created today means that you're losing the time if you're not back by the peloton by the finish line. And it looked like an Alpecin rider, I don't know if it was Plancard or Janssens, someone ended up hitting the back wheel of Groves in their train.
Yeah.
So the Alpecin rider behind Groves hit his back wheel, and that just caused a domino effect towards him crashing, then the next 2 riders crashing, then some more riders crashing. And that was a rough crash, and we lost one of our big ones there because Damon Arensman was involved, and I'll be honest, it didn't look that good. So I really hope that Arensman's injuries are relatively okay. He ended up with a neck brace around his neck, which is usually not a good sign, but that's a GC rider gone. But at the moment, I care more about him being healthy than him being out of the race.
Yeah, it was really, really fast, high-speed crash and the Ineos guys had nowhere to go. They couldn't see it coming. It's a straight line. Alpecin are in a line. There's not even much pressure on their left or right, and the guy just clips Groves' back wheel, and yeah, that's also why it's a fine line, I think, and a slippery slope when you start giving Masseyuk 3 months. And then it's like, where do you draw the line? Because at the end of the day, like, is inattention and carelessness punishable? No, because then, everyone will get punished for causing any crash. But certainly not a good one. And the Ineos guys, as I said, had nowhere to go. Thomas, I can see Le Gruppetto on Twitter has taken a screenshot, and I can see Thomas, who's listed as losing 24 seconds on the stage, he's not on his bike, but he's standing, and so he was caught up in that crash too.
Okay.
He's lucky to have, and he was probably, I think he must have crashed because he's not just waiting with the foot down.
So it's obviously in hindsight with whatever happened in the race so far, but Ganna already doing well in a sprint. We see that Thomas has evaded a crash in the first sprint stage because Ganna came too fast at 10 kilometers to go, while the crash danger was at 6K to go. And Ganna's easily the rider that goes forward with their GC rider in the wheel, but goes too fast to the point that he burns out so quickly that he's not really protecting their GC leaders as much as he probably could in the first sprint stage, at least. Then he went for a sprint in stage 2, but the more I go through this Grand Tour, the more I'm kind of feeling like they're missing Luke Rowe.
Yeah, Heidek was very good yesterday, but you're right, Luke Rowe is that captain. I also would say, I don't think Thomas crashing and losing time 24 seconds and Arensman crashing means that it's not still correct to let Ganna go for the sprint. I think there's other things, and this is a really, there's nothing else to talk about on the stage, so this is the worst time to crash. 5.2 Ks to go. You're outside the 3 kilometer zone, and it's 6.5 minutes to the finish. So you're fucked. Like, even if Thomas didn't touch down badly, you're not going to make it back. In time, you're going to lose time. How many people have lost time because they had to pause for a second behind a crash in this Vuelta or Tour de France recently? And how many people have lost time because they were in the front third of the pack and crashed? And I think GC teams need to take a really hard look at, if you're not going to be able to maintain front position, is sitting behind another team, fighting for position in the middle of the pack, the safest thing to do? Or, like, if you sit on a sprint stage like this, where there's 50-meter gaps, with Freyler. And by the way, you've spent no energy up
Yeah.
to this point. Up to this point, you've done nothing. If you sit the back of the peloton with Castro, Freyler, Hajduk around you, around Thomas, and you avoid crashes and just you're freewheeling all the space like the other people who didn't crash, all at the back, like, and say there is then a crash, they'll bring you back. You got a 3-man TTT, they'll bring you back. Unless you get extremely unlucky. In a Tour de France, different because you could have fucking 5 proper sprint trains. But in this Vuelta, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like,
It's Alpecin.
half of Alpecin are not going to keep you behind. So I really think teams need to take a long, hard look at, are they creating more danger for themselves? It's like I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, honestly.
It's very possible, but it's also a sign that I feel like cycling's always been in the baby steps when it comes to data in sport. And I feel like it would be so much lovelier if the sport had so much more data analysis in the sense like that. For example, like a map of the peloton where you could see where the most likely crashes happen in the last 10 kilometers. Hot zones like that. I don't know the terms for it. I'm not an NFL or whatever sport, rugby person, whatever, where they have these hot zones. But I feel like on basketball, NBA, for example, you've got these hot zones of where are the shots taken, where do crashes happen in the peloton. Is it like that there was more data in this sport?
It's not
in that
the guy
sense?
last wheel.
Yeah.
The guy last wheel in the peloton, anecdotally,
Tell
to
him on
me,
today.
I mean, but he wasn't even last wheel. They're not the guys crashing. I think, it's really something to look at. And I don't think Roglic should be trying to fight for position.
Yeah.
I've already said multiple times, I think it's much better for him to just be with Tratnik, be a bit further back.
He was here, no?
Well, I feel like that's what he was doing. He stayed with Tratnik and they kept a bit of space around them, not trying to dive into positions. Yeah.
Because during this last crash, I also recall seeing or you pointing out that Roglic was being paused a bit and he wormed through them last minute and then went off again. So Roglic did not lose time?
He didn't lose time, no. Thomas is listed as losing time. But yeah, it's a bad crash. It's something to think about. And I think it also depends on rider to rider. I think if you have Nathan van Hooijdonk and Dylan van Baarle and Vingegaard who never loses the wheel, that's fine. You can do the traditional stuff.
Yeah.
If you want to use Ganna for the sprint or if you have a Roglic, you might need to do something a bit different. But ultimately, not great for Aronsman. And this sprint just gets messier and messier and messier. There's no TV footage of half of what's going on. They're in a town with high rises, so every corner pretty much is the helicopter shot is blocked by the high rises. I'm watching Aular because he's an easy jersey to spot, the national champ, and he's just every corner dive bombing under Vandenberg. Every single corner, he's moving up positions. Didn't cause a crash, but he's suddenly like 12th wheel into 5th wheel into really, really good position. He's also got David Gonzalez with him. Another Caja Rural rider, and I think Robbie Hayes might have crashed.
I don't know.
I don't know, but Albertson's lead out was not as good.
He crashed a few days ago.
Yeah, I don't know if Groves said in the post-race interview if he did crash, but Groves was not there. Oliveira moved up late, and then there's this last corner, right-hander, 300 meters to go. Jeffrey Soup is first pretty much through the corner, opens up his sprint. Everyone else behind Soup blocks the quicker sprinters. Aular, Groves, and Milano all get blocked, and then Milano comes up, blocks Groves, blocks Aular himself, and then dies on his run. And Jeffrey Soup manages to win the stage from the 35-year-old from Total Energy, the Beard, who won his first race in pro racing in I think
a long time. Well,
he won his first pro race.
Amisa Bongo he won, but
in Amisa Bongo in 2011, and then he won his second pro race, according to PCS, in Amisa Bongo Stage 1 this year. So 12 years between drinks, and then this year he wins a Vuelta stage. He said he wasn't even supposed to do the race.
Yeah, Fiermos was supposed to do this race instead of him, I recall correctly, and then he stepped in last minute, or was selected last minute to come to this race, and now he takes the biggest victory of his career. So shout out to Geoffrey Soup, to be honest. He's always been a lead out. If my memory serves me right, when it comes to Geoffrey Soup, he was at Cofidis, I think, lead out for Buhani for multiple years. He was at FDG beforehand. If I recall, was 2014 the year where Buhani was still there, and then he moved with Buhani towards Cofidis?
There was Demar Buhani beef.
Yeah, there was beef between Demar and Buhani, and then in 2014, Buhani moved from FDG to Cofidis, and his lead out, Soup, joined him throughout that. So that's what happened there. You said it. He also does loads of these African races, like Amisa Bongo is the biggest one because he ends up winning there as well. And that's been it's interesting how you see a lot of like French teams, pro teams also dive into that calendar as well. And it's pretty cool to see. They sometimes clean it up, which is a bit unfortunate for the African talent locally, but it's probably also cool to be able to measure them against teams that are a pro team like Total.
And actually, the in-ring posted, coincidentally, yesterday, this is very, very strange, but yeah, there was a military coup in Gabon at the moment, and that means that Tropical Mr. Bongo might be a threat in January.
Bongo was the president, no?
Yeah, President Bongo.
Is he also the president of the Bingo Bongo Tour?
In Benelux.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Sorry, that was a terrible joke.
But he's been arrested according to in-ring, so
yeah,
it's just very curious that 2 days apart, Jeffrey Soup, the Mr. Bongo specialist, wins the biggest race of his career, and just this is one of these huge upsets.
Yeah.
This is the biggest upset of the year. Like, to win it, this guy's not even like, Soup is like a very average lead out man in mostly .pro and 2.1
he was
races.
a good lead out, but now he's like an average pro team lead out.
They put him into this race as filler because Viamos was sick or injured, I think.
Pretty good filler, huh? Ending up winning Gaviria style by going to the last corner first.
And listen, to be honest, like, I'm happy that some other teams are winning. Like, I don't need to see Jumbo winning every day or Alpecin winning every sprint. It gets pretty tedious actually after a while. So it is nice to have him first, and then Aular finish really fast second. If he got out earlier, he would have beaten him, but he didn't. Turns third, Milano fourth, Gross fifth, Vandenberg sixth, Gonzalez seventh, Page eighth, Gannon ninth, Govakar 10th. Sorry, Benji, you were going to say.
It's kind of like, I feel like the Vuelta has evolved it kind of a tiny bit, because back in like the 2016 days, I was watching La Vuelta, and it was the kind of Vuelta where you had Jan-Pieter Kerr fighting against Jonas van Genechten and Johnny Meersman, also similar level sprinters as maybe not Geoffrey Soup, but the ones we see here at this race. Worse than Groves, I would argue. And then we evolved into an era where Philipsen would be coming, or Ackerman would be coming to these races, and you saw Bennett at this race. And I feel like we're kind of in that 2016 era where we do see those third tier level sprinters at the race.
Soup, like, I'm happy he won, but
credits for him, like,
yeah, he was in position, and him and Aular took a lot of risks, and maybe there is that. Groves already won at 2 stages, and Milano's on much bigger money than these guys, and these guys are fighting for contracts, they're fighting for bonuses, and they're not on a lot of money, and they risk a lot more in these corners, and they get rewarded. What is curious to me, and listen, 180 UCI points too for Total Energy.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of points. Aular's racked up. He must be Caja's biggest point scorer. He's on. Oh, he's not done that well. He's on nearly 200 UCI points from this Vuelta so far, and he's going to do well.
I remember the days when I was saying, Luis Aular would be winning every single stage, and was it Basque Country 2 years ago or so on this
Nearly
podcast?
Won this.
He's actually leveling up, and I remember Aular because he came in my attention because of my Pro Cycling Manager live before this, and because he was in PowerTag, Matrix PowerTag, I think, like a local team somewhere in Southern America, and I recall him being the most winning rider of that year in 2019. I don't know exactly if that's true.
He won like 1 million races. But that's the team. That's the team Francisco Mancebo's on.
He won 5 stages in a row at the Vuelta of Venezuela.
Beast. No, in all seriousness, is this guy a better bunch sprinter than Garcia Cortina? Like a hectic, large bunch sprint?
It's difficult. I can't say that. Current Garcia Cortina, yeah.
Because
it's like Mozzato.
Garcia Cortina says something weird, like he's trying to help Massa a little bit, but he's nowhere in this sprint. And, it's also weird. Like, Nico Denz. Like, surely his sprint is good enough to be...
Nikias Arndt is a good example.
Yeah, Nikias Arndt used to win these, but I'm surprised that's the interesting thing. There's guys like Cort, there's guys like Nico Denz who, in a small breakaway, they can almost beat bunch sprinters if they get the timing right. But in the hectic sprints like this, it's a completely different skill set, which they don't seem to have.
Could Casper Pedersen for Quickstep already have podiumed a race here, or
Probably, yeah.
would you reckon he doesn't necessarily deserve the freedom in the same way Ghana is getting for Ineos?
Yeah, I think Remco's obviously much more realistic to podium the race than Thomas or Aronsman was. So, I think Remco's team is light on enough that I don't think he'd like that too much. But yeah, that was the stage. I think a lot of teams will be thinking, should we have left our sprinter at home?
Gaviria,
Gaviria, Damar, anybody really.
Sam Bennett,
Team's he on Bora.
because he didn't go to the Tour, eh?
Yeah, why didn't they take him?
Did he go to the Bingo Bongo Tour, or am I drunk?
I think he did.
No, he didn't.
He
Went to the Deutschland Tour and DNF Bremer Classics, and he doesn't look that great at the moment, though.
Maybe he's in the doghouse with Bora again. Who could have seen that coming? Anyway, that was the stage. Tomorrow's, not the most memorable one, but certainly Total Energy will be very happy. I think they've not had the best year, and to be honest, the Sagan experiment has been a waste of money.
Yeah.
Even the marketing stuff.
Sagan could have won a sprint at the Vuelta.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, if he wanted to take the risks he used to, for sure. Today he could have.
Like, this is Romandy. This is Romandy level sprint. No,
maybe lower. Yeah. Maybe.
This is your lowest day. This is your deep moment in the career of Patrick.
It's just super technical and it's just strange. Yeah. Anyway, and it's not a hard stage before, whereas Romandy is a bit more thinned out. Anyway, tomorrow it should be certainly thinned out from Denia, where literally every rider spends their time in January and December. They go over Valdebo, which, like the pros do a million times in winter as well, down in Valencia, 165 Ks, and they're going into the Costa Blanca Interior, just north of Alicante, and it's hilly, 3,500 meters plus of elevation in only 166 kilometers, all short climbs, or not too difficult, but just up and down all day. 8K 6%, 4K 6%, 9Ks 5%, 11Ks 5%, with a bony sprint on top, then rolling plateau, bit of flat on about 600 meters elevation, and then 3.8Ks, 11.5% up to Jorret de Cati. Now we're in Rampas territory. I think this is the first proper Rampas Inhumanas stage with...
Ooh, he said it!
I know. The first 1,600 meters of the climb is only 9%, then 800 meters at 15... No, wow, then the next 1.6Ks average is 14.5%. So, yeah, that's what you want.
If you don't know, we've got Rampa Inhumanas on our shirt, right?
We do. On the back of the LRCP merch shirt at shop.lanternrouge.com, we have Rampas Inhumanas and so forth, all on there.
Literally.
Even Crosswind Disappointment, which we had today.
To clear something up, the typo in disappointment on the back of the shirt, is that on purpose or not?
Well, maybe it's a play on, the disappointment. I don't know.
Anyway, Torre de Cati, this stage looks to me like a very similar stage as stage 6, where the same opportunities are possible, the same breakaway shenanigans is possible, but does the GC still allow for that? I'd argue Quickstep is one rider less than the break formation on stage 6, so they're a bit weaker for that, but are they also the team that people are going to be attacking? Probably. I reckon UAE with Soler can still get away with doing that. But can Sepkus even get in the breakaway again?
Oh, I don't think so. Maybe. I mean, first of all, it all starts, you have to go with Martinez.
Yeah.
You have to bring Martinez with you, number one, because FDJ team is very strong on this parcours. And if you don't bring Martinez with you, Stora, Mollard, Askey and co, they will chase you down and you're going to get nowhere. So you have to bring Martinez with you, number one.
And who will then react to Martinez being in the breakaway?
I don't think UAE, Yambo, or Quickstep would care if he took another 2 minutes.
Well, 2 minutes, but
he's going to get smoked in the TT.
Yeah.
And then they can... Yeah. Look, I think Lenny's really good, don't get me wrong, but there's some big stages coming up. So I think Jumbo got to try get one of their 3 leaders in the break again with Lenny Martinez. And the question then is, would they be happy with Koos, Martinez, and Soler in the breakaway again?
UAE.
Yeah.
just put Soler in it. My microphone is trying to get
Why
away
don't
from
you
me.
Put it down.
It was trying to get away from me. But I'd argue that Soler is still their response to that. And then I'm curious how other
Would you
teams
be
will
happy with
respond.
that?
As in, if I'm UAE,
Yeah.
and if Kuz is in the breakaway,
Would you be happy with Soler going with Koos and Koos gaining 2 minutes and Soler gets to gain another 2 minutes?
it's not ideal, but it's a better situation than not being in there and Kuz being in there in the first place. Otherwise, you're in the chasing position. So I don't think it's a great position. I don't think it's a terrible position. It's like an average, I'll survive, it's better than nothing situation.
I also don't think Koos is that much better than Soler on this climb compared to the other day, yesterday.
The problem is, if you send Almeida or Ayuso in that breakaway, then the others are going to react, and then Emco will react, then Jumbo-Visma will react with Roglic and with Vingegaard. So
I think Roglic with Ayuso or Almeida is fine.
yeah, but then Emco will be in the break as well. So then
Will
the
he?
entire well, if they're not, then that's a massive mistake.
But that's the situation I'm saying these teams need to try and create, because Baggioli's out. No Alaphilippe, who controlled it last year. Quickstep didn't get the break they wanted yesterday. I think UAE and Jumbo got to go round two. Round two, time to put Quickstep under huge pressure. I know Remco had a weak moment yesterday, but kick a good man while he's down, as I always say. If he's not feeling good and the team's not feeling good, you got to put them under pressure when they're not feeling good, because what if he's flying in week 2 on those huge stages and all of a sudden you have a big problem?
If I'm Total Energy, I'll try and be in the breakaway again with Steph Kras, again with multiple riders around him. If I'm Landa and Pools, I'll try it again. They're like on...
I'll do it again.
They are 4th and 6th in GC. Yes, they're ahead of Evenepoel and so far in GC, but they're not as dangerous for GC for those other riders, but they can get a gap of 3 minutes if it works again. So that is valuable. Yes. Groupama is a danger. You need Martinez with you.
You have to have Martinez with you.
Or they will chase you all day long. So it is going to be very difficult for Groupama to control, though.
I know, and that's why I think Martinez should just trust his instincts again. And if he sees Jumbo or a serious Jumbo or guy jumping,
or Remco,
what
if Remco goes in the breakaway?
Like, why not? Well, actually, because then Jumbo will just chase you with Tratnik and Van Baal and Volta.
Well, unless they're also in there, and then UAE misses it.
We're not going to see it.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe we will. Do you know, Luke? If it's a Saturday stage where we get extended coverage, Luke will look that up for us. But because listen, we didn't need to see the early part of the stage. I will say the TV direction has not been brilliant at this Vuelta so far. This sprint in particular today was not the best cuts, but I very much hope they've extended the coverage tomorrow, because maybe I'm jinxing it, but I think Valdebo, bang, I think all the teams should kick it off, because who's going to control for the stage from the GC group, Benji? Because if I'm a director of Total, as you said, I'm thinking, no, Jumbo aren't just going to control all day. Quickstep won't control all day after yesterday, so it's a free breakaway win again.
I don't know either, but I think the team that I'm most looking forward to seeing attack is Bora. As in, I still think Jan Uiterbrooks is far away to be able to do that. I think Vlasov as well could be in a breakaway, even though he's not really that rider in my head to do that. Kemno is going to be a good rider to have with him.
And Vlasov's fucking good in Valencia normally, where we are.
Yeah.
He is, and this finish climb really suits him. He's good on these sort of climbs.
Like his team as well, like if you've got a Nico Denz with you, for example, you've got
Lenny.
Yeah, those two riders together with Jan Uiterbrooks, good luck. Then the other teams might start kicking in, but it's still Jan Uiterbrooks. So it's kind of like Hindley.
I would take Uiterbrooks pretty seriously. He was with...
It's kind of like Hindley. We also took Hindley seriously as a podium candidate before the Tour de France.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think I picked him for maybe 3rd. So you're right. Who's winning the stage? I'm going to go with Roglic.
Okay.
I thought he looked the strongest of anybody yesterday on the climb.
Yeah.
I think this sort of finish really suits him. Normally, I think I picked Remco in the preview. I'm not seeing right now those San Sebastian 2022 lights Watts out of him. If we were seeing them,
he wouldn't have been dropped.
He wouldn't be getting dropped. Because otherwise, I would have thought Remco would have just walked this finish, frankly, actually. But he doesn't seem to have that at the moment. Descent finish, no risk, no glory. So I think Roglic wins the stage from the break.
Everything made sense until you
Yeah.
said from the break.
Imagine. Nah, that's impossible. he won't get in the break. But yeah, I think Roglic wins. Maybe someone gets in the break, like you said, like Jan, and then Jumbo and the other teams think we can't let this guy take too much time, comes
Yeah.
back, and then the GC group somehow wins.
That's very possible. And like, who will help control Groupama? Who will help Groupama to control breakaway formation? It completely depends on who's trying to get in the breakaway in the first place. So it could be actual chaos in the first hour.
That's what I mean. I think it's going to be carnage. And Luke's confirmed there's no images for the first 2 hours, so
We're never going to know.
We'll be relying on the race center, which says your rider's in 2 different groups.
I'm going to go ahead and say that the winner is going to be... I'm going to steal your pick from 2 days ago. I'm going to go for Soler.
Yeah, it's a nice stage for Soler. I also... So Roglic, my GC pick from the GC group, my pick from the breakaway is...
Not Soler, because I took him.
If I pick 2 French riders, do they count as one? Come on, that's got to be allowed.
That's...
I
Yes.
picked Lenny Martinez and Bardet. The 2 guys that came behind Kuz. It's not the genius pick, but I think Bardet, Martinez, a bit tongue-in-cheek, realistically.
Butrago is a good one for this one.
Red Jersey ain't getting in the break, most likely.
Butrago is a good one for this one.
He won on Trechimi, which is...
Where was he 2 days ago from the breakaway? Because not that great, if I recall correctly.
11th. He crashed there before he finished 90 seconds behind Kuz.
Consequences will still be there, though, I think.
Yeah. 2 days rest. Trechimi was identical. He was very good there after a hard day. I think he's a good chance, but yeah, I'm going to go with Romain Bardet to win this from the breakaway, with Roglic taking time in the GC group.
Okay, fuck it. Ayuso's going to win. From the
He was
Gruppetto.
on Les Prairies, he was the best of the rest behind Remco. And remember this again, on Les Prairies last year, Remco, which was 3Ks, 13%, a harder climb, he torched everybody. He put 34 seconds into Ayuso and like a minute into Roglic just about, and Mas.
Like, if I have to be completely focusing on what we've seen so far, then Roglic is the favorite for the stage, in my opinion. But regardless of that, I had Ayuso picked for this Vuelta, so I need to support my man. Ayuso's going to win the stage.
I think this is a good climb for Ayuso because he got
Yeah,
worked by the tactics yesterday.
I don't think he drops Roglic, and I think Roglic is a faster sprinter.
True, it's a downhill, but he's threat of death downhill.
Yeah, Ayuso's good descender, but Roglic isn't.
Ayuso can beat him in a flat sprint, no problem. Ayuso will torch him.
He's been shit at intermediate sprints. I have no confidence in Ayuso will sprint anymore.
I think Ayuso...
I don't believe it anymore.
Yeah,
It's
fair enough.
fake.
I think Ayuso can beat him in the sprint. But yeah, I think we're broadly in line with what we think will
We
happen.
said every rider on the start list.
Break will win. Ayuso, Roglic will kick off behind most likely, and it'll be very, very interesting, and the most interesting part of the stage we probably won't see. Anyway, also in other news, Daniel Benson reported on GCN, I think yesterday rather, that Carlos Rodriguez has in fact agreed, but it's very, I'm not criticizing Daniel here, I'm criticizing Rodriguez and his agent. They've agreed a 4-year deal. It's not signed yet. It's like, well, if we know one thing about Carlos Rodriguez so far, you'll believe he's on your team when you see him at the January camp in Denia in your colours next year. So I'll wait until it's signed because you never know what he and his agent might pull.
That's always the case with Quadro transfers. If you don't know, Quadro is the agent of Rodriguez. He's also been the agent of Amador and Carapaz during their crazy transfer seasons. Amador wasn't allowed to ride for the team that he's currently on, or the previous team that he's currently on, because of a transfer mishap in similar fashion where last minute he switched based on a signed deal already, and there was drama around that. So this isn't a Quadro special, to be honest. Like, it happens every single time.
What happened with Sosa? Wasn't there something funny there?
So Bernal and Sosa, I recall them having been signed. Sosa had been signed by one team, and then a different team took him over.
Trek.
Yeah.
Loses Trek.
But isn't he also the kind of man that kind of like signs a rider for multiple years at an Androni back in the day, and then he tries to benefit from that to have them buy out the contract?
Oh, I think that's fair enough, to be honest. I don't have a problem with that. If he, I mean, some teams in World Tour do that where they sign, and you'll have seen it with some GC prospects. They sign them to a very long deal, and you think, why the fuck would they sign that? Locking up that long, and then it's basically gives them some security, and then it's actually a low enough price that there's a buyout clause in there, and they can go to a bigger team if that team comes knocking and they progress as they expect to. So, but yeah, it's but no, all jokes as well. I'm not really joking, but that discussion aside, he's staying at Ineos. Like he's reneged on the Movistar thing. He's staying at Ineos 4-year deal. Movistar are going to be compensated according to Benson and also what I've heard from various people. And I think the reality is that compensation will actually be because Movistar signed their pre-contract with him was probably such a good deal for Movistar, and the compensation is based on the multiplier. It's how many years that he's broken times that salary. Because it was actually such good value, they get less money than if they'd signed him to 4 years at $5 million a year. Then theoretically, it's a $20 million buyout, which they're not getting. Obviously, that's not what they signed him to in the pre-contract. So, I think it all makes sense for Ineos. They had to keep him. Certainly, they've set many millions of euros on fire to keep him. They have, because not only is it. They now have to pay him significantly more in his new contract for 4 years than they would have if they extended him in 2022 last year. So it's not just the compensation of Movistar.
They were late.
Yeah, very late.
But also when it comes to the transfer itself, you said it. It's a good transfer for both parties. Carlos Rodriguez will most likely get the freedom to choose where he wants to do GC. Most likely Tour de France will he will straight up get.
Tour of Vuelta will be his leadership every year.
Exactly. So he's the most future-proof rider on their team when it comes to GC. Yes, Thomas can ride GCs, but he can peak.
Minimum co-leader with Thomas next year.
He's better than Thomas.
Probably in the way the trajectory is going. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, probably.
So I see that in that sense, but also because they missed out on everybody else as well, that he's kind of their last hope for the future for them. So he needs to be their man combined with the riders they have to grow. Like an Arensman is also in the team, but it sucks that he crashed out today. But also next to that, I didn't see him as the rider that would win a Grand Tour anyway at the moment. Yeah. He hasn't had that progression yet. He's like a rider that might podium a Giro at some point. But
Giro suits him much more than the Vuelta, in my opinion. So, yeah, it's hard to say. Just like with Thomas, I believe that Thomas Giro suits him much more than the Vuelta. But, yeah, it's really interesting. I think for Movistar, it's obviously a loss, but there's not much. If a rider doesn't want to come to your team anymore, at least they get paid something.
Yeah.
You know, at least they get paid. Obviously, they would have loved to have the next Spanish GC Hope, but it ain't it.
Do they then never learn their lesson to just... The problem is they can't learn their lesson.
What did they do wrong here?
Yeah, they can't learn their lesson of like, oh, we won't handle with the same agent anymore because that agent is responsible for every bloody talent that comes out of Southern America.
Every Hispanophone, the best Hispanophone riders are with a Quadro, except maybe Ayuso because
they did fight with him a few times during the Carapaz saga.
Yeah, Movistar. Yeah, Movistar. They stopped signing. Yeah, since Carapaz, Movistar felt like he flicked them. Yeah, and it's like, well, and then Sosa was the first one. No, was there someone before Sosa, or was Sosa the first one back? But yeah, it's like it's the same thing with Ineos with McQuaid. Like, you know, the
Trinity or
they like get a bit the Trinity Andrew McQuaid. To be clear, because there's the two, Gary and Andrew, but you can't with these powerful agents, of which McQuaid is one of the most powerful, and a Quadras, or by powerful I mean the strongest roster of riders. You can't just say, oh, well, I'm not going to deal with you. It's like, well, okay, good luck getting the next Hispanophone Tour de l'Avenir winner. Because if you're not going to deal with me, like Bernal was back in 2017.
But in my opinion, if I see that situation, then I'm also feeling like a Quadro is indirectly hurting the value of their riders sometimes. Because if you do alienate one of the two teams that are interested in your riders, then you are hurting the bidding war between those two teams.
It certainly makes it less likely that they're going to take your Amador package deal.
Yeah.
Like Amador with Carapaz to EF. And certainly not an agent who's, you know, immune to mistakes either, which is, I mean, the Rodriguez thing I think has worked out actually pretty well for Rodriguez and for him, but
does he benefit extra from the fact that there's been 2 contracts signed?
Not really. I mean, he doesn't really benefit. Like, if they just waited and never signed the Movistar pre-contract, then there'd still be the Ineos offer. And that, in fact, Ineos might actually be able to pay Rodriguez more money because Ineos have to allot money to pay for the compensation to Movistar.
But I mean, does he get more commission then because of that or no?
No, the agent's commission is off the base salary. So the pre-contract didn't help that.
Okay.
But also, like Quintana last year, they actually didn't sign the extension, and it was announced.
Yeah.
And that way, Arkea didn't, from memory, terminate his contract. They just didn't sign his extension after the Tramadol case, and it would have been Quintana would have been on much stronger grounds to argue if he had that extension signed. Tramadol is not a doping violation. You cannot terminate.
Not yet.
It's not, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
You cannot terminate my contract for what is not an anti-doping violation. Now, maybe an NPCC team would have a clause in there that says they could. I don't know that.
Would there be a clause that says hurting the reputation of a team and that indirectly hurts the reputation of the team?
That's usually in there. So, but that's really you got more to argue with if they're not obliged to sign your extension.
Yeah.
If they don't want to, and then you're left holding nothing. So that was curious last year.
It's the same thing with the Ineos Falls and Verona transfers who wasn't a signed contract yet.
Yeah, we'll sign you. Yeah, we'll sign you.
Yeah, it's like if you get an email that, okay, you'll sign, then you probably shouldn't be basing it just purely off the email.
Maybe they'd signed a pre-contract and Ineos fully reneged on it and Ineos were like, sue us.
Yeah.
I don't know. I doubt it.
I don't think so.
I don't know. But it is... I think the UCI, by the way, this segues into that. The UCI, I don't know why a pre-contract is necessary.
Yeah.
Why the rider is out of Rodriguez, for example. Rodriguez was out of contract in 2024. Why does Movistar have to wait until August 1, 2023 to sign and submit to the UCI the binding rider contract for Rodriguez for 2024, for which he is currently out of contract? You can still maintain the rule that you can't publish it until August 1. But right now, the way the rules are structured, it hurts smaller budget teams with good scouting. Because if you scout a rider early and you say, fuck, he's got no result. Like he's got no results yet, sign him up to 250. You sign him up to a brilliant deal, $200K a year for 3 years. And then the big rich team who doesn't know what they're doing comes along on July 1 and they say, that pre-contract ain't worth shit. We'll pay you $600K, 3 times $200K, and we're keeping him. And you're like, well, thanks for the 600, I guess, but I would have preferred the rider.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they can't sign the rider contract in respect of the future, because it's still in the future in August 1. It's still in respect of 24.
Random question right now that is somewhat related to the topic we're talking about. Let's say I am a team. My name is Benji, the team, and I have no sponsor for 2025 yet, but I'm signing riders for 2025. How is the UCI protecting riders from being signed to teams that don't have a financial security in the year that they are signed for?
I mean, theoretically, they're supposed to. It's really on a year-by-year basis with the bank guarantees. But as you said, for 25, that's not in a year.
Jumbo was leaving Jumbo-Visma, for example.
Yep.
How is Jumbo-Visma able to promise to all their big riders that in 2025, 2026, they will still exist?
I guess like a lot of teams, it's just faith that there'll be a big sponsor coming in.
Yeah. Scary, huh?
Well, it's like with B&B, and that was in a much shorter time frame with B&B. It was like, trust us, we'll have a sponsor signed up in 3 months when you're getting paid. And that never happened.
And that's also a different discussion because that's the same year. As in, I feel like UCI could make it possible that teams for the next year need to prove before we get to the likely transfer season that they're solvent for the next year. But it's just an interesting thing. Yeah,
and listen, like a lot of teams, most teams do not have a 5-year sponsor guarantee window for all budget. Maybe UAE do because maybe they do.
Grab the treasure chest.
I think it's kind of with the billionaire teams or the petrostate teams, you have more security in that you're personally guaranteed by a billionaire. So,
Yeah.
like Jim Ratcliffe, I presume, is not going to renege on his contracts. He's almost personally guaranteeing through Ineos to those riders. But there's more of a fickle element where billionaires also might get bored of things and decrease budget later on. But that's not as bad as, of course, the B&B saga. But yeah, it's a great point, Yumbo, because they're obviously signing guys to 3-year extensions,
2026.
4-year extensions, etc. As well. But yeah, Gerard Ducati tomorrow. We will have, we forgot to say as well, we will have another watch along tomorrow. We're going to start it with about an hour to go in the stage. Make sure you subscribe to the LRCP YouTube channel to see that. It'll be scheduled pretty shortly, as well as we will tweet it out and put it on our various Instagrams, the link to the live stream as well. That'll be tomorrow, probably around 4:30 region, depending on how fast they go. If they go slow, maybe 4:45, but I don't think they will. So hopefully you can join us for that, and we'll have the pod as normal afterwards. I think it'll be a cracker of a stage. Until then, ciao.